All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And thanks so much for joining us for our weekly podcast known as This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the weekly recap of the goings on in pop culture, whether it's film and TV, local news, tech, sports, and the like. We try to bring you guys up to speed. And typically, I you normally use this portion of the show to introduce my co-host, Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills, but he is a little under the weather, so he won't be joining us today. So hope he gets better, and he will be back with us more than likely next week. However, this past week we had a little small show known as the Oscars or the Academy Awards, which revealed this list of nominees. So we will have a special guest joining us to discuss those names that were called, as well as those names that were not called, surprisingly, and then also to be able to dive into those said folks whose names were called. Who the winners might be in that said case. But before we get into that, we did have some other stories of note this week that I wanted to be able to dive into. So, with that said, let's get it. I'm going to hop into our first story, and this is uh, in the world of sports. So, I'm going to bring this up for us. Of course, we are but hours away from the NFC championship game, which will see the Washington Commanders take on the Philadelphia Eagles. And rookie quarterback, of course, Jaden Brown has continued to make history with his heroics as well as with his poise for first year player, and not only a first year player, but a rookie quarterback, as I mentioned just moments ago. But the question becomes, will the Eagles defense manage to stop him in his tracks? Now, there are a couple of things, couple of key points to keep in mind when we are talking about this said topic, and I wanted to bring it up here. Is that with the Redskins, they did beat the Eagles in their last meeting. However, when we're talking about the Eagles, they do have a weapon in the form of Saquon Barkley, their running back, who has finished with a club record 2,005 rushing yards in the regular season, which is 101 yards shy of Eric Dickerson's single season rushing record of 2,105 yards set back in 1984. Uh, to go further into, how much Barkley has been, carving his run as a running back for the Eagles. The 2,000 plus yards that he has gained in the regular season has made him the ninth player in NFL history to rush for 2,000 plus yards, which actually has helped the Eagles average just over 179 yards on the ground, which is good for second in the league. Now, conversely, if we're talking about the Washington Commanders, they are actually 30th uh, in the league this season when it comes to defending the run, allowing just over 137 yards per game, which is a glaring stat which can be problematic when we're talking about being able to defend against Barkley. So we shall see. I don't know. There have been plenty of occasions where the Commanders have been counted out when we're talking about their playoff run. However, they've somehow managed to find ways to win. And when we're just talking about, as I mentioned, Daniels at the top of considering the maturity and the poise that he's had these playoffs as a rookie quarterback, which is kind of insane to fathom. I don't know. They may just be a team of destiny, and we may very well see them in the Super Bowl. It's kind of weird to say, talk about our Washington football team, the Commanders. and the Super Bowl in the same sentence, but it is still awesome nonetheless to see to have such a turnaround of past years of the struggles that the our team has had here in the nation's capital when we're talking about the last few years. But we will see. I don't know. But what do you guys think out there? Or for those of you out there that will be watching the game, do you guys feel that the Commanders will be able to pull it through and continue on the momentum that they've had these playoffs? Or do you believe that the Eagles will start in that momentum and in that perceived destiny that the Commanders seem to be on? Let us know in the comments. So moving on, I want to be able to dive into a interesting story. So if you give me one moment, I'm going to pull it up for us. See if I can get it up here. So we did have a that, let me see here. Give me one moment. I'm sorry. We did have an interesting story that made the rounds in we want to have in our daily news roundup, which was revealed not only through by way of People magazine, but also Boston's WBZ news radio, centering around lovebirds and MIT grads Quilly Simeon, who's 26, and Leilani Troutman Simeon, 24, who took a unique approach to their wedding. So let me see if I can bring this up for you guys. All right, so I should be able to share it now. Here we go. So take a look.
Invited to a wedding at Chuck E. Cheese in Everett, and how could I say no? So here's what happened. Years ago, Chuck E. Cheese posted an April Fool's joke that they now host weddings.
And it's like Chuck E. Cheese, where the mouse can make you a spouse.
That's where Leilani and Kwai Lee come in, a couple MIT grads living in Somerville.
She brings me out of my box. For example, with this wedding.
Which wasn't really supposed to happen.
Oh, our lawyers from corporate want to tell you that this is April Fool's joke.
But Leilani was like, we're doing this for real.
I was like, hello, I heard that you guys do weddings now. And they were like, I'm going to need to put you on hold. And then it was a long hold. And then finally he came back and was like, yeah, I guess you can just book it like a birthday party. Like.
Now for the big question, how much did it cost?
This is a mega fun Chuck E. Cheese package. So it came out to around $800.
And for a wedding, that's like less than the cost of an airhead. Plus, do normal weddings have all-you-can-play passes, or a ticket blaster,
Or breakdancing mice? Or pizzas with suspiciously mismatched slices?
I always tell people that the best thing about being married is that you don't need to plan a wedding anymore. Booking a caterer or a DJ or a band or figuring out where everyone's going to sit, it's all just extra stress for what's supposed to be the happiest day of your life. Leilani and Kwai Lee figured out a cheat code. They spent less but got so much more, sending everyone home with core memories to grow old with. And you know what they say about the couple that plays together.
She has lots of crazy ideas, and I love to go along with them.
And I'm excited to spend the rest of my life with them.
This is a video, by the way.
Okay.
From a Chuck E. Cheese wedding, I'm Matt Shearer. For more, ask Alexa to play WBZ News Radio on iHeartRadio.
All right. So shout out to Matt Shearer, who did this story, as I mentioned, with WBZ radio. But as I said, was also a story in People magazine as well. What do you guys think? I've been in. I haven't myself been married or got in the process of being married, but of course I've gone to plenty of weddings, whether it's with relatives who are getting married, members of my family who are getting married, or also friends who are doing the same. And for those of you out there, as you guys well know, it can be such a stressful process, whether we're talking about the logistics of weddings, whether we're talking about the cost of weddings. And I don't know, when we're talking about what they were able to explain here, you have a unique wedding experience, right? You have a you don't have to worry about food because food is available there. You also have, whether you want to admit it or not, you have music that's available there as well, so you don't have to worry. You have catering checked off because you have food there. You have music checked off because you have a form of music entertainment there, whether you want to admit it or not, with the animatronics that they have there at Chuck E. Cheese. And then on top of that, uh, uh, you have a space that you are able to fill with family or friends to attend that said wedding. So, and at the end of the day, just as you saw in the video, you're spending what, $800, which is ungodly cheap when we're talking about a wedding, which can balloon into crazy prices between all the logistics of the people that are coming, of being able to feed them, of being able to ensure that you get the spaces that you want, and all of those things. So I don't know. I would say, for those out there, maybe you don't agree with me, but if we're talking about something where you have a unique experience, something that's memorable, not only for those who are tying the knot, but also for those that are attending, and you're able to save some money, more power to you. As you saw in the video, the groom was fine with it either way, as long as the wife was happy, and the wife actually wanted to get married at Chuck E. Cheese. And I know a lot of times too, going back to the costs, a lot of times we're talking about situations where, because of how expensive the undertaking of, and I hate to call it undertaking, it's not undertaking, it's a great, it's supposed to be a joyful occasion. But when we're talking about how expensive weddings can be, and I've seen it before, whether it's with family or with friends, a lot of times the honeymoon portion that follows can suffer as a result, because of how much money is spent on the wedding, that you're not able to be able to invest as much as you would like on that said honeymoon, or maybe you have to push the honeymoon off maybe by a couple of months or even a year, because you're trying to save money on what you want that experience to be. But guess what? It looks like we do have an additional voice with us. As I mentioned at the top, we actually will have a guest joining us to not only chime in about this said story, but also about what transpired with the nominations with the Oscars. So let me introduce them now. Give me 1 second. She is a board member of the Washington, D.C. Area Film Critics Association, otherwise known as WAFCA. She is a critic contributor for RogerEbert.com. And if that weren't enough, she's also a key member providing her talents as a content creator and critic for the media outlet known as Geek Girl Riot. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show. Yes, welcome back to the show, Sherin Nicole. Let me bring her one now. Let's see, Sherin, can I hear you? Yes.
I hope so. Can you?
Yes, we can hear you. How are you?
I'm okay. I had an allergic reaction, so my face is like 5 times bigger than normal. So,
We can't
hi.
tell. We can't
It's
tell.
for me. Yay.
So
How are
great
you
to
doing?
have you. I'm great. I'm great. It's great to have you on the show, and actually perfect timing, because as I was diving into the story, it's such a wild way to have a wedding. So, I will punt it over to you. What are your thoughts? I would love for you to chime in.
Well, first of all, I think it's super cute. I love that they went for. I love that she went for it. She's like, Chuck E. Cheese is my spot. I loved it growing up, so I'm going to get married there. They saved on cost. Everybody had fun. That's a wedding I want to go to, right?
Yes.
Just wear my sneakers, go hang out with my friends, play some games, and I also spent a lot of time at Chuck E. Cheese at birthday parties. The cake is good, or at least it used to be. I don't know about
Yes.
now.
The pizza is good. People sleep on the pizza. The pizza's always been good. So I don't know. You know when your food is good and people kind of sleep on this, and I realize this is when you have a lot of the food delivery services
Mhm.
actually allow you to buy food from Chuck E. Cheese. Like I was like, wow, that's a thing. Like if you have a
Really?
Chuck E. Cheese, yeah, if you have a Chuck E. Cheese near you, there have been occasions when I've ordered, whether it's from DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever the case is, that it brings up Chuck E. Cheese as an option to be able to buy their pizza and have it delivered to you.
So yeah, that must be making them some money doing that. And I look
Yeah.
at this picture and like all of these happy faces, people are happy. I've been to a lot of weddings where we're disgruntled at the table.
Yes.
We got some dry fish, some drier chicken, some beef that resembles hockey pucks. I'd rather have a good pizza, some of that chocolate cake with the white icing and sprinkles, and play some games, create my own souvenirs. I love the fact that they, got unlimited play, and then their wedding souvenir was whatever they chose with their tickets. So I like that. It's
Yeah.
good.
For sure, for sure. But what do you guys think out there? I would definitely like to know your comments. Do you think that it's corny to or not the best option to be able to have your wedding at Chuck E. Cheese? Do you think it's not a good look, as they say, that you should have a more traditional wedding? Let us know in the comments. I love to know your thoughts out there. But Sherin, we're gonna uh skip ahead to our film and TV talk seconds segment. So I'm happy and uh, excited to have you join us to give us your 2 cents. So we're going to talk about first, before we get into our talk of the Oscars, we're going to talk about a story centered around Walking Dead and a
Oh,
Walking OG alum and Punisher star John Bernthal, who this past week it was revealed that he would be joining the upcoming star-studded epic, The Odyssey. And in an exclusive from Deadline, Bernthal will be joining Christopher Nolan's follow-up project to his Oscar-winning effort in Oppenheimer, which already includes an ensemble that features the lights of Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Zendaya, Robert Pattinson, Lupita Nyong'o, and Charlize Theron. The film, of course, will be an adaptation of an epic poem composed by Homer around 8th century BCE, and is set to arrive in theaters on July 17th, 2026. So, Shireen, as our guest host, I want to punt it over to you. What are your thoughts on Bernthal joining Nolan's The Odyssey?
anything with John Berthal is a good day. You know, like he's like he's another secret sauce kind of actor where he makes everything better. If he's in it, that you're going to enjoy it. You know that it's going to be some good story, some good character, something to sink into. And then of course Christopher Nolan hasn't done anything like this, but loves that kind of epic storytelling that works well with the Odyssey. So that combination of things, I immediately thought that, it would be nice to see Bernthal as Poseidon, because there's a lot of, I'd say, animosity between Odysseus and Poseidon. And I would like to see that, but I don't know who Odysseus is. Like, we don't know who's cast as who, right? Do we know who's cast as who? I haven't seen anything. So I'm very excited to see how they're going to play that out and to see which characters Bernthal plays. But all of the cast, like I love the cast. I love that it's multi-culti and that this movie is going to be shot all around the world using new IMAX technology. And we like seeing the locations that Nolan is going to pick out, how epic it's going to be. Personally, I am hoping that they do a different twist on it rather than just the classic kind of Clash of the Titans style. Maybe not so much change the setting as maybe change the time period or the style. So we'll see. What are your thoughts though?
So I'll say this. First off, shout out to Bernthal because he is a fellow Washingtonian. For those that don't know, born and raised in DC. So shout out to Bernthal for that. And also, you know, I'm a fan of his work, as I mentioned, Walking Dead, Punisher, of course. And just as you said, it never hurts to add talent of his caliber to any project. But I'm going to say something unpopular.
All right.
And what the unpopular thing I'm going to say is that I'm cautiously optimistic. And the reason being is that a lot of times, just as I mentioned, we have this project that has an embarrassment. And I really mean an embarrassment of talent, whether we're talking about in front of the camera or behind the camera. And we've seen this, Sherin, where because of what a project looks like on paper, because there is such an embarrassment of talent, sometimes the final product can be stale. And hopefully I'm not rooting for this project to be that way because I'm a fan of many of the folks that are a part of this ensemble. I'm a fan of Nolan's. But you also see it with filmmakers too, when they're coming off of success of just as I mentioned with Oppenheimer, of having, you know, your last project be critically acclaimed and award winning. There's a tendency, and is not unheard of, where the next project that follows after that can sometimes be stale. And it's not to say that Nolan, whether that happens or not, will like disappear off the face of the earth in terms of, because I feel like, you know, he's already established himself. But I'm just saying specifically with the next project after something that you do that is critically acclaimed and award winning. And the reason why I say that is because you invest so much creative energy, right, into your last project that you're so spent by the time you get to the next one that I feel like there is a tendency for things to be still. There is a possibility for that happening. So I don't root for that to happen. I'm just cautiously optimistic based on what I've seen in the past when it comes to projects like these, where you're checking off every box. You have, like, you know, the best cast. You have this incredible cast. You have this incredible director. You have all these pieces that on paper would seem that they would work, but just for whatever reason, just doesn't. And the only reason also why I say that when we're talking about the cast is there is something to be said about actors that are leading actors and leading ladies, and those that are ensemble actors. And a lot of times when we're talking about that difference, there are actors out there where they just have that vibe where they command, you know, that attention as a leading lady or as a leading man. And sometimes it plays to the detriment of a project when they are not that leading lady or leading man, when they have to kind of fall into their place as the support, as a supporting character to their leading lady and leading man. And the reason why I bring that up is I'll never forget what Gary Oldman had mentioned when he was doing the Dark Knight trilogy and talking about, you know, he's a guy of his caliber who can easily be the leading man of any project that he's in. But there is a said skill of kind of bringing yourself at a level to, you know, elevate your leading lady and your leading man. And I don't feel like everyone has that skill or is able to do that. And it's not to say that they're not, you know, great actors, great actresses. I just feel like that is a specific skill that, you know, folks have to be able to do if we're talking about an ensemble. So
okay, I have a couple thoughts on that.
Yes.
To your point, That may be why most of these actors have all been in ensemble pieces, and not just ensemble pieces. They've all done superhero work.
They have. They have. I'll give you
So
that.
they
Yes.
are, yeah. So they are well versed in doing this kind of. Either they've all done superhero work, or they've all done. Almost all of them has done superhero work. One of them has done just ensemble work and not ventured into the superhero realm. But
Yes.
here's the thing: when you're dealing with the story of the Odyssey, it is very episodic. Well, I won't say episodic, but it is one story, but they are separated into chapters. So each part of that story is almost told in isolation, whether it be
That's fair.
Penelope dealing with her suitors with Telemachus,
That's
or
fair.
when you deal with each kind of trial that Odysseus and his crew face. There's a very specific cast. So it's almost like a string of short films. And in
That's
that
fair.
way, I think that if it's done well, and we know that Christopher Nolan does well, although unpopular opinion, I have not ever and will not ever like his Batman films. But I call them the guano films. Anyway, the point being, I do. The point being is that Christopher Nolan is a very good filmmaker, and I
Yes, he
think
is.
some of this casting reveals that there may be an answer to your concerns, and I think they're very good concerns. But between the casting and the story, I think maybe we haven't answered that it will be done. So then the question really comes down to script. Is he
Yes.
writing it with his brother? You know, which
Yeah.
is really key to his work. And that's going to tell us the story. Of course, we know that the effects are going to be great, the set, the production design, we know it's going to be well produced. But is that script gonna pop the way we need it to pop to reintroduce us to this epic tale?
Absolutely, absolutely. No, I agree with you. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'm rooting for this project because on paper it sounds like stellar and sounds awesome. It's just that I've been burned before, where there have been cases where things look outstanding on paper, and especially coming off of as I said, award winning work, that sometimes things can become stale right directly in that next project that follows. Whether we're talking about talent that's in front of the camera or those that are behind it. So we shall see. But that is going to do it for what we had to say about the Odyssey. We're finally going to dive into the Oscars now. So just to give just some brief background of some brief breakdowns of the announcements that were made on Thursday. We had the film Amelia Perez that led the way with 13 nominations, which is setting a record for a non-English language film, followed both by The Brutalist and Wicked with 10 nominations apiece. Then A Complete Unknown and Conclave, each with 8 apiece. Apologize if I'm butchering your name. I know sometimes I can struggle with some of our names here, but here we go. Coralie Fargiet, who directed The Substance, was the only female to be nominated in the Best Directing category, and also scored a writing nom, of course. We also have Demi Moore landing the first Oscar nom of her career, including Isabella Rossellini for Conclave. We have Carla Sofia Gaston, the Spanish-born star of Amelia Perez. She was nominated for Best Actress, making her the first openly transgender performer to be honored. We have Timothy Chalamet, of course, who follows James Dean as the youngest two-time Best Actor nominee. We have Coleman Domingo. Love Coleman is the first back-to-back Black Best Actor nominee since Denzel Washington. Speaking of Denzel Washington, there were some notable snubs. We have Washington, a two-time Oscar winner, was left out of the Best Supporting Actor category for his work in Gladiator 2. We have the last Showgirl stars, Pamela Anderson, and recent Oscar winner Jamie Lee Curtis, who did not hear their names called as nominees. In the Best Picture category, we had Sing Sing, September 5th, and A Real Pain, all missed out on nominations. And though their films earned nominations, directors Edward Berger for Conclave, John M. Chu for Wicked, and Ramel Ross for Nickel Boys missed out on Best Directing nominations. So, Sherin, what were your thoughts on the nominee reveals?
Hmm. That's really broad, Brandon. Like,
Yes, I know, I know, I
that's a
know.
lot of questions.
But I'm just saying, just for you,
Okay.
succinctly.
Where do we? Yeah, exactly. Where do we want to start? Can we start
We can
somewhere?
start. We can start first just with the nominees themselves. Those names that were called.
Okay, so the big ones, the big
Yes,
categories.
yes, yes.
You know, much of this is kind of expected. There aren't really that many surprises. I
Yeah,
think looking at the list again, like I am now, it is a surprise, and it's kind of been an issue throughout the season that Denzel is not being nominated for Best Supporting Actor. I think he deserved it. You know, some people say that he's just training day in ancient Rome, but no, this character has a different tenor, a different vibe, and I think he well deserved it. I know that for me, it was one of the roles that stood out, especially in a movie like Gladiator 2, that for me just wasn't a great film. So Denzel's performance stands out even more. Uh, of course, we want to see Coleman Domingo from Sing Sing. Adrian Brody was a given for The Brutalist. Timothy Chalamet. So those are all givens. I think that one surprise is Sebastian Stan for The Apprentice. I don't know how you felt about that, but
yes.
I
That was a surprise. Yeah,
yeah,
that was
I'm
definitely a
glad
surprise.
he
His
got it.
co-star though, he was outstanding. He was
Yes.
as the attorney, like he was outstanding. And I apologize if I'm brain farting the name right now.
Yeah,
If you
Sebastian Stan and Jeremy Strong as a
Jeremy
duo.
Strong, thank you. Yes,
Yeah,
outstanding.
they were
Strong was
fantastic.
outstanding.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I think Yura Borisov, I'm not probably not pronouncing that name right, but he was really sparkling is a term I like to use in Honora. There was just something about that character that had a pull. He pulled you in when you're watching him on screen. Kieran Culkin, Best Supporting Actor, another not a surprise, has won throughout the season. So there's those things. Actress in a leading role, it's all the people you expected. I think Fernanda Torres being the Brazilian outlier, getting nominated for awards that her mother was nominated for, and of course in the Golden Globes winning it. Really good to see. But the other actresses, Cynthia Erivo, Gascon, Madison, Moore, all have been kind of led up to from the rest of the season.
Yeah, no, I mean there have for the most part a lot of the nominations, as you said, were givens. I'm gonna say something else very unpopular.
Okay.
Um, I love Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington can do no wrong to me when it comes to when he steps foot into a role. But if I'm thinking of instances, and I'm gonna relate this to how I relate to sports, when we're talking about getting the nod for certain things, he did an outstanding job in that film and in that role. But when you are placing those other roles and the nature of those roles among his fellow nominees, one of them had to, unfortunately had to fall out of all of those nominees. And I feel like in this case, while the role was while Denzel, stood out among, all of his peers in that project, I still feel like in that case that something had to go, and if something had to go, it unfortunately had to be his out of those nominees. If they had an extra space for an additional nominee, I would absolutely agree. But if you have a finite a number of spots, unfortunately, you have to be controversial and one has to go. And I felt like, in that case, those roles that you had there were those that got the nod versus Denzel. You may disagree with me, and that's fine. But I mean, it happens in sports too when we're talking about all-star selections or
Yeah, it does.
being placed in the Hall of Fame, whatever the case for that year. Sometimes something has to give because there are but so many spots. If there was an additional spot, you'd be able to pull that additional person in there. But in this case,
Well, let me tell you what shouldn't have gave.
okay.
Ramel Ross should have been nominated for Best Director. And if not there, that definitely Best Editing and cinematography was clear. Same thing with challengers. You will not find better editing in this industry in this past year than challengers and Nickel Boys. And you can say whatever, the other things you can make an argument. Director, you can make an argument for cinematographer, although I don't think you should, but you can. But what you cannot argue about is the fact that these were the two best edited films of the year. And it's because of what they did with it. It's the art. It's how avant-garde they were. It's the risk that they took with the editing of these films. Yes, other people told stories well. We got angles that enriched what we were meant to understand about character or about, foreshadowing. But nothing is as lyrical and as gorgeous as the Challengers editing. And nothing is as impactful as the editing in Nickel Boys. And also, let me just say that if you are giving out awards this season for composing, for the score, you're talking about music that enlivened and enriched the film, and you're telling me that you don't see the names Reznor and Ross from Challengers? Again, where are we right now? What are we doing? Like, this is supposed to be the celebration of art. That like there is very little that was better. There was stuff that was on par, but very little that was better than what they did there. And so I'm struggling. You see, you guys, if you're watching or listening, I'm impassioned about, because I am perplexed. I am bewildered. Like, what is going on here in those two things? I really can't fathom it. The only other time that you could tell me that Reznor and Ross weren't in there is if my guy, what's his name? Ludwig Göransson. Like, listen, Ludwig Göransson is going to win. If he walks in the building, it's a win. But other than that, I do not fathom what went on in those categories. I mean, I fathom the rest of the nominees, not the omissions.
I hear you. I will say this. One thing that I am happy to see is anyone who watches our show and sees all the different shows that we do, whether it's this weekly show or the anniversary shows or the interviews that we do, that we love our genre-related stuff, genre-specific stuff. And I'm happy to see with this award show this season that I love horror films, and that horror films got their flowers and their love this year. I enjoyed Nosferatu. I enjoyed Alien Romulus. I'm happy to see that they got nominated. I'm also happy to see The Substance get nominated. Even more importantly than that, I'm happy to see Demi Moore get nominated. I feel like for so long that she was, just as she said, just categorized into one little box in terms of what she brought to the table as an actress. And I feel like she is like among the best actresses that we have in terms of the variety of roles that she has, done over the course of her career. And finally now, she's in her 60s, finally now getting her flowers, which is obscene to me, but I'm glad that it's finally happening. I am kind of bummed that we didn't get, and I named some of them there, is Pamela Anderson, because I feel like that's like such an interesting journey of where her career began, and now to finally get to a point where she is being recognized as an actress. I thought it would have been cool to see her also get the nod as a nominee.
Another season. It's like
but you can't get everything you want. You can't get everything you want. But as I said, I'm happy to see The Substance. I find it so hilarious because I know typically when we're talking about the award season that people are going to go back maybe on films that they didn't have a chance to see. And I vicariously want to be there for those who have not seen The Substance, that they haven't experienced the film yet, to be in the room with them as they are experiencing that film, because it is such a wild ride. And for those that know their horror stuff, it is a horror film through and through. And if we're really getting deep into that genre, it falls into that subgenre of horror that we like to coin as body horror, where if we're talking about films like The Fly, where you're not trusting what your body is transforming into. And yeah, like as such a wild ride, and it's so delightful to see that that is a film that is not only being recognized for the entire package of the film itself, but also for the performances in it. So
Well, I think this is a really great moment also for horror as commentary. The films
yes,
that you named, the films that were nominated, are talking about social issues in that way that horror does so well. And
yes,
see them, but they also strike that balance between what we've been used to with horror for the past maybe decade and cinema, you know, the cinema of it all. You know, there's
yes,
something really gorgeous about Nosferatu, the way it's shot, the way it's realized, the costuming, the lighting. There's the acting, even though it's not my favorite. I wrote a whole essay about it, but there's just something kind of delicious about the horror of Nosferatu, the way that it throws back to the history of that character. There's
yes,
something amazing when you see body horror told from women, by women, you know,
yes.
and the way that that changes the camera angle. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, so those
And
things
how
we're
meta
used.
it is. I was gonna say how meta it is on commenting on what it means to be even be an actress. Just, just like Demi Moore
Yes,
herself of being an actress. At a by a certain age, there's a perception of like you're only categorized into certain types of roles after you reach a certain age. Unfortunately, as an actress, which many have commented on. So
yes, and that parallel is what you were talking about with The Last Showgirl, where we see, you know, Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis act out those very same themes in a much more indie kind of environment, but also a really effective and affecting film.
yes, for sure, for sure. So I'm very much looking forward to what comes of our show of the winners there and who gets announced come March 2nd. But of course, we're going to do so much speculation between now and then of how it will turn out. And of course, with the host Conan O'Brien, that should be interesting of having him host the Oscars this year. But that is going to do it for this week in pop culture. I want to thank Sherin so much for coming aboard as our guest host. So Sherin, I'm going to punt it over to you. Can you tell folks where they can find you?
Oh, you can find me walking these DC streets. Uh, uh, and in the best way possible. I'm not pretty womaning or ignoring it, but you know, nothing wrong with that if that's what you do. Me, my hustle is with the pen game. So you can find me writing on Riotus, that is RIOT-US.com. Lots of content there on the Geek Girl Riot show, which Brandon is going to have his first appearance this week. You
Yay.
Yay. Of course, like you mentioned at the top, you can find me on rogerebert.com where I get to write essays that deep dive into issues that speak about women, that speak about people of color. And you can also, yeah, just search for me. It's Sherin, Sherin, Nicole, Nicole. And don't confuse me with Addison Rae's mom because I am not her. I got two N's, she's got one. So, but yeah, no, seriously, she started using the name Sherry Nicole and it messed up my algorithms real bad. All the searches for
Oh
me,
no.
yeah, they suddenly went to her. Her name is Sherry Nicole. I'm like, lady, like, why are you co-opting my name? You know, you've got a name. It's Easterling. Yeah. Anyway, that is a rant for another time. We can do
Yeah.
that later
Right.
when I'm on less Benadryl. But those are all the places you can find me. And Brandon, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, I want to thank Shireen for hopping on and sharing her thoughts on the Oscar nominations. I'm your host, Brandon Troy. You can find me on X at Brandon Troy ENT if you're still on X for those of you out there, and then IG at Brandon Troy _ ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you guys soon, guys. Bye.